And even if the reason they are being canceled turns out to be a completely fabricated lie, that person's reputation almost always is forever ruined. For example, Johnny Depp is still being blacklisted by Hollywood. Or an even more specific example, Juanetta Gibson. So you see, Gibson accused a football star by the name of Brian Banks of kidnapping and raping her. And she sued the Long Beach Unified School District, winning a $1.5 million settlement. Banks, on the other hand, lost his scholarship to USC and served 5 years in prison. Gibson later admitted she made up the whole story and was ordered to pay back the $2.6 million and punitive damages. However, none of that was actually paid. In fact, Banks, luckily, he was later signed to the Atlanta Falcons, but unfortunately was later cut from the team, which begs the question, had he never been wrongfully sent to jail to begin with, would he still be on that team? And a private investigator later met with Gibson, and he managed to get a recording of her literally saying,
"I lost all the scholarships, everything."
Brian Banks asks Gibson for help in clearing his name.
I will go through with helping you,
but she's afraid of losing all that money from her settlement.
All that money they gave me, I don't want to have to pay it back all that, because that will take a long time. Hey, buddy.
The mood in the room was light, but investigator Parrish's questioning got heavy.
When did you lose your virginity? Was it after him, before him?
After.
Now the big question.
Did he rape you?
No, he did not rape me.
Did he kidnap you?
No.
Gibson refused to repeat her story to prosecutors so that Brian could be exonerated. Luckily, since a private investigator had it recorded, he was eventually exonerated. So then, how is society supposed to safeguard against the entire world going too far? Since cancel culture does commonly lead to disproportionate punishment, even for really bad crimes, it still must be rejected since it cannot be restrained. So, unless we can hear not only a precise analysis of exactly how harshly we should administer our cancellations, but also a reliable way to ensure that this appropriate level is never exceeded by the uncontrolled masses, then this notion of canceling must end if that criteria cannot be met. I once heard someone say that when a person is canceled, they may go on to write a popular book about it, and so aren't actually that harmed by it, such as like Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Jordan Peterson. But this simply means that the canceling didn't work. Like, don't they get it? The canceling didn't work. And if the canceling was successful, nobody would be reading that book. Someone shouldn't be canceled forever, but can we please specify exactly how long they should be canceled for and how to ensure that it doesn't prevent them from employment and social ostracization for the rest of their life? Like, that's a genuine question that needs to be answered. Some make the point that cancel culture is effective at causing change. I agree. It is effective, incredibly effective. But so is burning down your house to remove spiders. Like, so is killing yourself as an effective way to get rid of a headache. These things are hardly proportional. And that's my point. It's not about whether cancel culture is effective. Nobody denies this, but can we really expect to believe that because something is effective, that this provides a sufficient warrant to employ it, even if it goes far beyond what's fair? Now, we've talked a lot about the moral justification of cancel culture, but what about the practical justifications? Does it even actually work as intended? Again, the answer is no. What the result is of telling a nosy public that, hey, this person over there, don't listen to what they're saying, don't buy their book. In fact, we won't even let you buy their book because what they're saying or what they've unrelatedly said in the past is simply too dangerous. There is probably no better way to ensure that people will go out of their way to give a person the time of day than telling them they're not allowed to do it. This is basic psychology 101. People want to explore and take a peek at the dangerous and forbidden. When there are protests outside of Berkeley, literally blocking the entrances after Milo Yiannopoulos was invited to speak, there was a riot and the place was lit on fire, becoming one of the most viewed and talked about topics on the news, which completely backfired. I don't think the speech would have had the millions of views that it did if it weren't for this attempted cancellation and the controversy that ensued around it. Now, again, this is to say nothing about if it was moral to invite Milo in the first place. It might have been, it might not, but given that he was, the question remains that did the attempted cancellation work? And that answer too is a flat out no. Finally, embedded into cases of historical cancel culture is the presumption of some sort of supernatural, moral future saying. And I say this because we don't just cancel current public figures for the things they have said and done, but also historical figures. So statues such as George Washington or Thomas Jefferson often get taken down and sometimes even get sprayed. I remember seeing one with the word racist graffitied across it. These figures were obviously not perfect moral role models on issues of racial justice. We quite rightly condemn the fact that they owned slaves. We condemn their hypocrisy and cowardice. But for those who think it's right to cancel their statues and write their names out of history books for their moral violations, I caution you to consider with what judgmental eyes future historians will one day look upon you when attention gets drawn to you, that you aren't some sort of bastion of moral perfection yourself. It's very obvious that our present society is currently engaged in actions that future historians will look back with horror and embarrassment. So some easy examples is our abuse of factory farming, or our rapid increase of deaths of despair, things like suicide and overdoses, for example. Our desire to overconsume for the sake of consuming, costing us the destruction of our planet, the destruction of our ocean, the destruction of fertile soil caused by our ghastly push to produce more and more food on less and less land. So ultimately the future will look back with shame on how we tolerated or stood idle as this went on long after we are dead. But someone say that's not fair to say because they wouldn't get to defend themselves. Surely they're a good person. They gave to charity. They make mistakes like everyone else. But that's what our founding fathers could argue too, if they could defend themselves. And that's my next point. Through cancel culture, people are put on trial by a verdict of public opinion. The public essentially plays the judge, jury, and executioner without any way for the person to defend themselves. Yet, if it is true that historical figures should be canceled on the basis of some moral anachronism, then are we not just committed to expecting that we will all just be canceled ourselves in the future for some anachronism as well? I'm just looking for some consistency here because I look forward to the day that you decide to take down a statue of Martin Luther King because he participated in the destruction of our planet. In conclusion, do you really think that cancel culture will encourage people to acknowledge and make amends for things they have said in the past, or encourage self-censorship? Do you think cancel culture will encourage people to actively seek out previous notions they clung onto or jokes they made in bad taste in order to learn from their mistakes and apologize? Of course it won't. I really don't think it won't. Cancel culture, as far as I'm aware, offers no path to redemption. If and when these things come to our attention means we unforgivingly cancel those responsible, forever tarnish their reputation and character and so on, all you will see is a chaotic scramble for people to destroy any record of their previous behavior, hence self-censorship, out of fear of being canceled, and that the torches and pitchforks will one day point in their direction. The question you must ask is this: do you want people to live up to your ideal moral standards for fear of repercussion, or because they have genuinely grown as a person and want to, out of moral integrity, change their ways? This kind of behavior can only happen if people are given the opportunity to do so without fear that treading wrongly will lead to an unchecked and unproportionate and tyrannical infinite condemnation that is cancel culture.
All right, well, we're going to raise our voices. The conversation's going to go on. Let me be crystal clear. Let me be crystal clear. People do not have the right to tell you what you can and cannot listen to. People do not have the right, fringe elements of society do not have the right to hold you hostage to discourse. This is a university. If we cannot have this conversation here, we can't have it anywhere. We have to be able to talk about it. No issues will solve themselves. That sort of behavior is unacceptable in civilized society.